What's happening?
Hey, how we doing?
Happy Friday. How's the weather down there in Birmingham?
It's hot. It's very hot, but that's okay. How's it up in Minnesota?
That's good, man. We don't have the humidity. It's nice. I mean, it's a little rainy, but it's been nice overall. I'm pumped though, man. I apologize, everyone. We had some scheduling conflicts with some of our guests, so we moved up the show kind of last minute. So if you saw it or if you're watching this later and didn't get to see it live, I apologize. It's just we try to do everything we can to accommodate our guests. So sometimes there's last minute changes.
Yep. Jacqueline, Sage, thanks for joining us. Before we get started, special shout out to our sponsor, Sales CRM. Great option for any brokerages in the market for a CRM. You can look up Josh Lyles or Sales Dash. Shoot them a message, tell them that the dog sent you. We've got an exciting lineup today. Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit about who we got coming on?
Yeah, so I think this will be interesting. So Chris and Michael, who goes by It's Me, I think he has another name he wanted us to use as well. So they were a part of the organization Time for a Change. So they were kind of upset with the way the trucking industry is going and rates, and they started a brokerage. They'll explain more, but basically their idea is the brokerage keeps 2%. The broker keeps 8%, and they give the rest to the trucking companies. And they, kind of want to get rid of a lot of the bad players in their minds. Game. They're big on broker transparency and not hauling cheap freight. I know we'll get into it with them, but they don't. A backhaul does not exist for them. And yeah, they got their organization up and running. They got a belief. They really believe in what they're doing. John will be joining us as well. I'm sure they're not exactly going to align on some margin and some things about how a brokerage operates. But just like last week when we had Jamie and Jennifer on from a different organization with John, I think we'll be able to have a civil discussion, and people from different sides will kind of be able to see a different perspective. So, what do you think? You excited?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. I gave their website a quick preview, but I'm definitely excited to learn more and hear their perspective on everything. I know they have a broker timeout page, so it's the first time I've seen anything like that. So
You're
yeah,
not on there, are you?
No, fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
Knock on wood.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we stay off of there. But yeah, without further ado, we'll bring them on stage one by one. First up is going to be Chris here. Hey, Chris, how are we doing?
Hey, welcome, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having me on. What's going on?
No problem. You in Idaho today?
No, I'm in Ohio.
Okay, you're picking up you're moving a load today, right? If I remember correctly.
No, I've been kind of parked in Ohio all this week. I'm at my aunt's house, though.
Good stuff. Well, do you want to give us kind of a background? I mean, we kind of spoke briefly about what you and Just Me are doing. You kind of want to give us, a background. I know you're an owner operator, as well as you and Michael are co-founded. It's Time for a Change. You want to kind of tell us about your background, what your organization's goals are, kind of give us a short, synopsis.
Yeah, so it's actually past time for a change. What we're trying to do is get, small carriers, owner operators, really the whole industry. My plan is to get the whole industry involved with this, because the way that I think it's going to take all of us to fight all of this fraud and scams that's in the industry. We all have to work together to actually fight it. I really don't think government's going to step in and do anything. I mean, there's already laws against it, and they're not doing nothing to enforce those laws. So we have to, the way that I see it, we got to do it ourselves.
Is one of those laws, and we'll get into it, one of those laws you guys are, for enforcement is the broker transparency law, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of the regulations and actual U.S. code as well.
Definitely. Well, we'll hop into it, get into that topic later, I'm sure. Yeah, you want to bring on It's Me next, Will?
Yeah.
Hey, Michael, or just me. How's it going?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming. You want to just give us kind of a brief synopsis of kind of your history in the industry, kind of what you guys are trying to do with your organization, and kind of and we'll get into some stuff more in depth, but just kind of give us a brief synopsis of who you are and kind of what you're trying to do.
I've been in the industry 30 years. I've been in two bad lease to purchase programs. I bought this truck cash. I had cash saved up. I had, my HELOC and everything else, and just to stay in business and try to feed the people. I went 121,700 and some odd dollars in debt in 2021, and these brokers at that point in time were telling us that if we didn't run illegally, that we couldn't take their loads because it was COVID, quote unquote. I never noticed anything other than it was really hard to find food out on the road, and it kind of just irritated me that the whole thing was going on. But after all that happened, and it was thank you, Mr. Truck Driver. Directly after that, we went from decent rates that we could survive on to fuel being outrageous, and the rates being so low that it's below operating costs. So I started making waves, and brokers started telling me, if you don't like it, well, go get your own loads. I just took it to the next level and said, hey, why don't I just get everybody loads and just push everybody back to where it needs to be? The person that owns the equipment makes some money. The person that's getting the load gets paid for getting a load. So, people don't like me, and that's fine. I don't care. I'm not going away. There's a lot still to come. People are talking about the broker timeout board, broker timeout box, whatever you want to call it. The reason it hasn't been being updated lately is we're doing a complete face over on the backside to where we actually put the loads. I need to be able to copy and paste everything to a text document so that I can take it and just throw it into a line script, because it's really hard to go back and edit a line script and scroll back and forth with a phone. So IT department made me a couple of things on the new page, and that's up and running now. We've been working on that today, and that's going to continue going on. And basically what we're doing is we're just finding the worst broker we can or the cheapest broker we can, and asking everybody that is joining up with us to give them a call and let them know, hey, you earned yourself a spot on the timeout board, which basically is a boycott for a week.
Okay.
Every day we put it up, every day it drops off, it continually puts it on. IT department is currently working on making it so that it actually deletes itself on 7 days, but right now it just replaces.
It's only 7 days then if it deletes itself. They're not up there for forever.
Well, let's add John to the stage and get his thoughts on the broker timeout board. John, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, guys. How about yourself?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Man, so I don't know if you're following along. What are your thoughts on the broker timeout page there that Just Me's got going?
Well, I didn't see it, but I mean, there's nothing wrong with calling out bad actors. I mean, I don't have an issue with that.
William seems to say that the brokers on the page have shown improvements on loads. So it sounds like maybe there's some positive impact there.
Now, that would get a little convoluted with like an agent program. So like, for example, I'm with LDI. We have 150, 60 agents. Everybody runs their book independently. So there could be, a couple bad actors, kind of like Landstar, right? We got a lot of great Adam, LaShawn, some Jeff, great Landstar agents that I would do business with no problem. But then you've got those bad actors within the Landstar organization too. So
No, it's definitely bigger companies. I'm sure harder to police on rates. Are you taking those just me and Chris? Are you guys just kind of looking for individual brokers to build those loads? Or are you looking for companies that kind of have a history of posting low rates, or what kind of goes into the broker board?
Just pull up DAT and tell it to give us the cheapest load, and that's the guy that goes on the board. That, or if you send me stupid rates in my mailbox, you're the first one to go up. So, and like he was saying, it's these companies have a lot of agents. Well, my opinion is if I'm running a multi-level company, I'm in charge of everybody that is in my company. So if my company gets a bad name because of somebody else, well, maybe it's time to get rid of that bad egg and, straighten out my company. And that's the whole point.
So do you like the
it's not just against one agent. It's against the company if that's, who they work for.
Yeah, the way that I see it, I mean, that we do know that there's a lot of different agents within the company, but those agents are actually representing that company. So it actually falls back onto the company's reputation. So they should be doing something about it.
Okay. So as far as you guys and your mission, do you guys have any ties with the NOOA? We had some of their members on last week. Kind of sounds like maybe you have some similar goals. Do you guys work with them at all in any of this?
We're not affiliated with them, and we are not going to talk about them. We kind of put our foot in the sand that if they want to come on, they represent themselves, and we don't talk about them anymore. There's a lot going on in the background that I'm not going to get into, but yeah, it's
Will didn't know. He doesn't know some of the history, so I didn't mention to him not to bring up them.
I'm a founding member. We'll just leave it at that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we don't need to get into it. I wasn't aware. So as far as when you guys are uploading these brokers to your website, are you letting them know, sending them a link? I know you referenced that maybe you guys are calling them, letting them know that they're cheap, but have you ever sent anybody maybe like the URL for them to go look at themselves on the page and gotten any feedback from them?
Not yet. I mean, it's brand new. Like I said, we're still working the bugs out on it, and we kind of played with it for a week, and you can see what it is. But I mean, that's basically just to let people know that we're here and let them know that we're doing something. But there is a whole lot more to come. That's just, I mean, that's kind of child's play. What is actually planned in the future and what is currently being worked on right now. So. I mean, this is not something that it's just going to be, this Dingleberry's putting a couple people up. It's going to be game changing. That's all I can say at this point in time. And
sorry, I just wanted to say Kevin asked a good question while we're on this topic. What is the criteria for a good rate?
Well, essentially, you look at the price of fuel. That's pretty much a rate that we're going to be using to do the broker, the carrier, and everything else. And it's basically whatever the driver needs to survive and still be able to run their business efficiently and safely. Because one of the biggest things right now is there's pictures everywhere online. People that don't have a brake can that's connected, or all these weird. I mean, I got pictures of a guy the other day has 2 blown tires. He's still driving down the road. Why is he still driving down the road? Because he can't afford for the shop to actually show up at $150 an hour plus, mileage. So, really, we need to actually start getting what we need to move the truck and what we, would. I mean. We got $200,000 worth of equipment rolling down the road, paying $1,300 a month for, insurance. About normally, if Bo Jiden isn't in office, it's about a quarter of your profits is going out the stacks. So, I mean, what are we making? Right? It's $225 to run the truck. That's not to replace your equipment. That's not to, justify anything, to grow your business or anything else. That is to run your truck, feed your family. That is driver's wage and run the truck until the wheels fall off it. Because I mean, it's really not maintenance even.
So I understand the concept, but as far as what each driver needs, wouldn't that? And I don't run any assets. I don't have a ton of experience, operating costs and all that good stuff. But just curious, wouldn't the operating costs vary pretty drastically between different operations? So would that? I mean, like, how do you define like kind of like a blanket rate? I mean, if you're just going off of fuel, if one guy's operating costs are substantially higher than another's, like at what point? You see what I'm getting at?
Well, my thing on that is everybody says, "Oh, I can operate less. I can operate less." Well, if you've gotten to a point that you can operate less, why should you operate for less? And whose mic is like echoing back really bad? Somebody's is echoing.
I don't know. Chris and John are on mute. So is that you, Will?
I don't know. Possibly. Let me mute myself and see. Let me know if it.
Any better? Yeah, I don't hear anything. But it doesn't make sense for a guy to work hard to pay his equipment off so that he lowers his price because he can afford to lower his price to try to beat the market. Really, we just need to have a set cost where, hey, it costs this much to operate a truck. If you paid off your truck, or if you're running a truck that has 2 million miles on it, like myself, you're doing some maintenance yourself. You're doing some things to try to save yourself some money and make some money and put money away. Well, then, I mean, you should actually be able to do that, right? I mean, there should be some standard in the market that, hey, everybody should be able to operate a truck, right? That's what the cost is for, is to operate the truck. Now, if somebody pays their stuff off, pays their trailer off, like I paid my trailer off, why shouldn't I make that money to reinvest into a new trailer? It doesn't make any sense why people say, "Oh, I can operate for less." Okay, good for you. You can also go out of business when your truck's no good because the brokers say after 10 years, we're not using your equipment no more, right? I mean, a lot of brokers, they frown on how old my truck is, but it is what it is. And, I may or may not need to buy a new truck in the future. And really, there's no money put away to do that, right? I mean, you're borrowing more money to keep on going down the road. And I mean, really, I've gotten to a point I just don't care. Either people are either going to join and do something with it, or yeah. Again, like I said, I was called a liar the other day. I can show you pay stubs, but I can go make 150 to 200,000 in the oil field. I do not care.
There's a good question here too, because from Kevin again. Carrier runs a head haul, and I think I know your answer to this, but the audience, might not. That the carrier is running a head haul for $4 a mile, is a return rate of 150 a mile okay, or is it 250 a mile?
Well, here's the thing. We talk about this backhaul, okay? Backhaul was pre-1980. Backhaul was when you had to have a run before you could get an MC. There was only so many MCs available, and your backhaul was the only thing you were able to do. And it was to return to where you actually had your load from, because you had what was called a bingo card, right? It was a plate about yay big, and it had all the stickers of all the states that you could run in. And you actually had to tell the federal government, this is the route that I run, this is how many miles I run, this is what I do, this is what I'm going to use my MC for, okay? Backhaul meant it was your return load to where you originated from, because you weren't allowed to do anything else. It was a lot like the Canadians. They can come here, they can drop a load, and then they got to go straight back. They're not doing that anymore. They're coming here, they're running around the United States, and then they'll pick up a load and go back. Same with the Mexicans. And that's half the problem in the industry, is they can do it for $1 something a mile, right? their trucks are garbage. They're not even really supposed to be on the road. But hey, I mean, it's your family they're driving next to, so keep it up. I mean, you know, it is what it is. But as far as a backhaul, there's no such thing anymore. A backhaul is ridiculous. I don't know any truck that runs any cheaper going back home than it does going out. I don't understand that.
But as far as just, I mean, say like market dynamics. So, I mean, if you're a flatbed or if you're going into South Florida, you're probably going to get paid a lot, and then you're going to expect to not get paid as much going out. Like, do you work off of averages at all? So, like, I understand that you don't believe in the concept of a backhaul modern day, but
I think everything should be based on what it actually costs to run the truck down the road. I don't think you should be gouging the customer at $4 and $5 and $6 a mile when you can, and then giving other customers a break. I think it should be a standard, you know, set. Hey, this is what the truck needs to run. This is what the broker wants to make. Put the two together. That's what you're going to pay to move a load. Right? I mean, the idea of a backhaul just.
Sage asked a good question here. Do you believe in supply and demand?
Supply and demand. Supply of goods to the demand of people. That is actually what that definition means. So let's stop misusing it. That's actually what it means. Supply and demand is the supply or the demand that the people are being, you know, they're demanding, right? They're demanding that is the supply and the demand. The supply is from what your supply is from the demand that they're getting. And you can look that up. I mean, brokers have adopted that as supply and demand of trucks. It's not. Supply and demand is of the market. Yes, there's supply and demand, but it's not the way that brokers want to make it sound. Just like brokers want to say, oh, well, I can give another motor carrier, which I'm an MCB, Class B, but in that same regulation, it says a broker is not a carrier. I mean, specifically, there's no way around that. Broker is not a carrier. So a broker cannot give a load to a broker. The FMCSA can yet to show us where this double brokering is, and they say that, or co-brokering, they say that it's double brokering, and brokers say, oh, no, I can do it. Why? Because they've adopted over the last 40 years. You know, the TIA has said it's okay, just like they told TQL it was okay not to pay their new employees overtime, and they got sued to high hell. And what did he say? Oh, well, the TIA told me I should. You know?
Yeah. So as far as back to the supply and demand. So I guess I'm just like thinking about the sustainability of that. If everybody's, you know, getting this ideal rate, then everybody wants to expand, get more trucks. Then eventually there's a bunch of trucks, and then there might not be enough freight to keep them all moving. You see what I'm getting at? So I guess
shout out to Hunter, by the way. That's Hunter over at the Logistics Lounge. Him and Rob have a good.
About what we got caught up in semantics about supply and demand, but number of trucks versus available loads. You know, as far as the sustainability of what you're speaking on.
Why do loads stay on the board every day then? Thousands of loads stay on the board and roll over to the next day. But why is that? There's more than enough loads out there for the trucks that are out there, and they want to say, see, what the problem is too many brokers that didn't know what they were doing jumped in the market and ran the rates down to the bottom. I mean, according to Ascend TMS, okay, they were $4 a mile and up.
Excuse me.
What, maybe 100 days ago now? Because it was.
You're saying
just
Ascend
about 110 days.
Wait, Michael, just so I'm clear, you're saying Ascend TMS had the average rates at $4 a mile 100 days ago? Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
And I just looked at it the other day, and it's still around the same.
I'll have to check on that. I did not know. You know, Ascend TMS,
and that's half the problem. Is brokers don't know they look at dat and truck stop, and that's the rate. Well, I got news for you. There's a neat little thing going on behind the scenes that, well, I guess it can come out here because, I mean, nobody else has said it yet. But, the overseas brokers or overseas dispatchers are being called by these mega brokers to move their freight. And they're saying that they've got a load list, and they've shown me the load list. Yes, a dispatcher has a load list from like, what was that company? I can't even remember what the name of the company was, but he showed me the load list. He wouldn't give it to me, but he showed it to me, and I wasn't fast enough to take a picture of it. But he showed me the load list of all the loads that were being given to him, and they had 4 hours to move them. But on the flip side, okay, the broker's putting it on the board at the same time for a cheap ass rate that ain't moving. I'm calling and saying, hey, I can move that load for this price. Oh, no. We move that load all day long for this price. But on the backside, they're moving it in real life for a decent rate. And they're manipulating the 15, 60, 30-day averages all day long.
Sorry to interrupt. A couple people in the audience were asking kind of from the broker's perspective. Obviously, we have John on here. Will's a broker too. But I mean, John, what are your thoughts on some of this, some of what's been said?
Everybody, I guess, has the right to their own opinion. I mean, we'll start off with the cost of operating a truck. I mean, so I've made friends with a super carrier, the vice president of sales, very smart guy. Him and I live in the same town. They triangulate their loads. So, and you can use the terms backhaul, head haul, all that stuff. I know what it costs them to run their truck. They have 4,000 trucks. They run 900 of those trucks in a team operation. 1 second, this is important. Hey, Nate, how you doing, buddy? Hey, I just see if you needed anything, bud.
Yeah, so I'll just speak while John's on the phone. As far as us and pricing shipments, we try to be fair with everybody, right? But usually,
there was that one email with that Nicole lady was like, "Hey, I'm out of truck."
You gotta mute John.
You're gonna have to mute John.
Yeah. What I was saying is the way that we'll price shipments is just what it costs to get moved, and then we'll just rate it accordingly to the customer. So if we have a load from A to B and the carrier's taking it at 2,000, we're going to move it at 2,000. If the carriers weren't taking it until 25, then we move it at 25. So really and truly, the way I see it is we're kind of letting the carriers, at least my operation, the carriers kind of like choose the rates. Whatever it costs to get moved is what we're going to move it for, right? And we're not big enough to really drive down rates like maybe some of these companies that you're referring to. But again, yeah, I mean, it goes back to I know we got caught in the semantics of supply and demand. But if the load doesn't get moved at 2,000, then I'm going to have to pay more than 2,000. So maybe that hits on what you're talking about with these carriers kind of running under the radar with not great equipment. But that's how we price shipments, just whatever it costs to get moved, and we're going to proceed accordingly. Here, John's back. I'm going to unmute him.
So
sorry about that. Was my number 2 client, so I had to take that call. But anyway, so talking to this carrier, they triangulate their loads. So, and they would give me a really good rate out of Georgia going to LA because they get X number of rate coming back. So it massages into an average. And that's the way they do their business. And again, this is not a 1 truck fleet or a 10 truck fleet. This is a 4,000 truck fleet. And I meet with this. I just had lunch with the guy the other day. So, for example, I pay them $2.40 a mile for drop trailers out of Georgia. They go up and they haul out of Chicago for like Expeditors and some of these larger enterprise shippers. And then, they get freight come back one of the West Coast. They pull a lot of LTL for Saia, Estes, FedEx, RXO. which by the way, just a tidbit, 75% of all the LTL freight is moved by line haul carriers in the country. It's not moved by XPO and Saia. It's moved by line haul carriers like who I'm speaking about. So anyway, it's a massage of those numbers together. Yeah, hold on. Hey, look at this, guys. This man wants me to give him a business card. 1 second here.
Real time with
Hello, buddy.
I drive.
Oh, you're a driver. Well, I'm not a driver.
I know, but if you're a freight broker,
Absolutely. This is a truck driver right here. Won my business card and saw me on this podcast having I'm not having a cold beer, but having some chicken wings. My name's John Rod.
Vernon.
Glad to meet you, buddy.
I'll be in touch with you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, so it was a law of averages. That's the way they do it. And they're operating on about a 6% margin. They'd like to be at 12, but because we're in this market, they're running on a 6% margin. This is a publicly traded company with doing about $1.2 billion in annual revenue. So as far as I'm concerned, whether it's a back haul, head haul, I don't know how you want to call it. It's about averages. And being in the car business for 25 years, leading large dealer group in West Virginia, it's about averages. Sometimes I lose 200, sometimes I make 2,000. At the end of the month, did I make a profit? Did I make the profit that I budgeted for or not? Then we make adjustments, obviously, based on that. So that's all I can say about head haul, back haul. I just recently got a carrier posted about this morning. I'm their back haul to get them back to Ohio. And that's because they've got lanes that they are in the Columbus market, and I can get them back to West Virginia about 120-mile deadhead. What was that,
John,
Matt?
what about paying the fuel price as the mile per load? I mean, obviously you have great margins. You've talked about it. I mean, you're probably one of the few that could afford to pay, the rate of fuel on all of your freight. I mean, what's kind of your thought process of pricing freight based on fuel?
I price my freight based on market conditions and the work that's being performed and what I've got to do. I have high maintenance clients, which require a lot of tracking. They're high value, a lot of electronics, proprietary software, gambling machines, that if these machines were compromised, I have a lot of niche freight, a lot of niche business. And obviously my work product is priced accordingly. I mean, I move freight. So basically, bottom line with me, and I'm just speaking to myself, I pay what it takes to move the freight with a good vetted carrier. If that's $2 a mile, it's $2 a mile. If that's $3 a mile, it's $3 a mile. Whatever it takes me to move the freight with the right carrier, a vetted carrier that we have history with, that has not any serious freight guards, because if a broker puts on, a driver calls me, my customer got upset because the driver was late, I ignore those things. But doesn't have any theft, their authority's good, their safer is good, their CSA is good, and then our safety department has vetted them and said they're okay. I pay enough to move the freight with a good carrier, regardless of what that number is. That's the way I look at it. So I can't speak for how it's done at other brokerages, but for me, I don't play with my client's freight. I don't roll freight. It doesn't set on the boards. That's not mine. It doesn't set on the boards. I move the freight when the customer requests the freight to be moved. Period. If that makes sense.
Chris, what are your kind of thoughts? We haven't heard much from you yet, Chris.
So I get the whole averaging out, your rates and everything, but at the same time, the way that these brokers are trying to move these loads at the rates that they're trying to move them at, you end up under operational cost. That's exactly why we've had so many carriers go out in the last 2 years. I mean, you're starting to see big companies actually go out of business now, shutting their doors. Arnold just shut down like a month ago. That's one big carrier. Convoy shut down last year. That was a big carrier and brokerage. But Pride was another one that shut down a couple months ago. And then you got all the guys like me and Michael that shut down too. And we're actually the independent owner operators that have their own authorities is what actually dominates the market. The authorities. We are the majority of them.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Do you think that's what needs to happen? Just me and Chris. I mean, that carriers, if more carriers go out of the market, there was too many carriers that flooded it. So, eventually rates are going to come back up naturally, which is sad. Obviously, you don't want anyone going out of business. But I mean, do you think there'll be a natural correction, or you guys are starting your organization?
I don't think it's natural at all. If you think it's natural that they run enough trucks out of business or piss enough people off that they won't haul their freight, and then they can't move the load, and it's actually the customer that takes the hit in the end, because the truck that would have moved it can't no more because they couldn't afford their insurance, couldn't afford new tires, couldn't afford this, couldn't afford that. I mean, it's I like to say it this way.
Can I talk about this affordability real quick, guys? So the average 68% of all Americans, and this is stuff you can look at online, live paycheck to paycheck. Most people are $1,000. Most people are a air conditioner repair bill, a transmission bill away from being broke. That's just America. The average person at the age of 30 and under has less than $1,000 saved, and 50% of Americans 40 and under have less than $50,000 saved. But yet Dave Ramsey and most everybody else says that you're supposed to have 6 months worth of savings. Now, I get it. Americans don't, most people, and here's what's another funny statistics. People that make six figures a year still live paycheck to paycheck. A majority of those live paycheck to paycheck that make six figures a year, just like people that make 40 or 50,000. It's just the American way. The more you make, the more you spend. So when you talk about people not having enough money to do maintenance on their truck and things like that, what are these? And I'm, I call a spade a spade. What are they spending their money on? Are they saving? So let's say, example, if they have an extra $1,000 because they had a $9,000 week, they got that $4 a mile load from a broker or their direct carrier, whatever it may be, and they have that extra money. Are they putting that money away in an account, or are they spending it? Because I have some friends that's a very large super carrier, 6,000 trucks, and they have a lot of independent drivers. They do a lease purchase type thing. But most drivers don't know how to operate a business. They don't understand cash flow. They don't understand putting money back for a rainy day. So when you say things, when you talk about things like they don't have enough money to operate their cost or their trucks, or to put money back in their trailer or in their equipment, sometimes that might be because they didn't manage their money right. They might have a wife that's high maintenance and has to have a purse. And again, I'm being generalized here, but it's hard to really say that the brokers are at fault and are responsible for the poor financial decisions, potential poor financial decisions of an owner operator, or because they don't manage their money with. And I'll even go one step further. If using your whole 8 and 2%, if you're going to give me 8% of $100, that means me, the sales guy's a broker. I'm basically your salesperson. I'm getting $8 for every 100 I make. Now, that's not realistic. Or if it's 2%, then I make $2. I mean, I can't. I couldn't buy a Coke for $2. And if I did 10 loads a day, I'd make $20. So I mean, it's not my responsibility.
Where are you doing $100 loads at? Where exactly are you doing $100 loads at? I ain't seen $100 load. What
do you mean?
Well, you're going on $100 and then you're trying to say it's small figures. But hold on, let's go on real figures, right? $15,000 to Florida, okay, and you make 8%. Now what do you make? Just for getting that load.
So it depends on how much I pay you. It's the spread difference. So if I give you 14.5 of that 15,000, I'm only going to get according to your numbers, either 8 or 2. I don't know which is which of that $500. Or, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's a cost of doing business. You take a big broker, they've got payroll, they've got lease, they've got lights, electric, insurance. I don't know if you realize this, but my wife's in healthcare. If my wife did not have good health care and I had to buy that on the open market, that same policy cost me $2,800 a month. Just
well,
like
I don't have health care because
I
I can't afford it. I don't have health care because I can't afford it. You're sitting there at the bar, you know, enjoying your whatever, right? You want to see what's for dinner for truck drivers? That's a sandwich, bro. That's a sandwich. Here's another sandwich. This is all I can afford. This is what my wife makes. Here's another sandwich, okay? I was sent with 4 sandwiches. I can show you inside my fridge. I ain't got nothing, man. Okay? So I got 4 sandwiches. You're sitting at a bar, right? Okay? I own my truck.
It is perception.
I pay $900 for tires, and you're trying to tell me about medical. Okay, medical. I had to pay out of my pocket. I had to pay for my wife's surgery. My sister-in-law is currently in hospice in my back room, okay, in my house, okay. So we're talking, you know, apples to oranges here. I mean, I hope you're enjoying your chicken, right? That's what I'm saying.
But those are
apples to oranges. Now let me ask you a question.
Just a second, guys. I mean, does that make you upset? I mean, John, seeing it from another perspective, I mean, you know, if you're making 40% margins, you know, and he's going through, you know, what he's eating and the different things in his life, I mean, you can see from the carrier's perspective where they could be, how they're feeling, John, about a 40% margin, for example, right?
Oh, this is going to come across so very insensitive, but I mean, it's just, you know, if everybody in this room that I'm in, there's, I don't know, 15 guys sitting here at the bar having a beer, or while I'm having a Coke, have problems. I can't be empathetic to everybody, because if I did, then I would have financial problems myself. I can't go to every driver that I book a load with and say, hey, you know, how much money do you have in your checking account? Well, I got only $500. Okay, well, I'm going to give you an extra $200. It just don't work that way, guys. I mean, I'm empathetic.
No,
I mean, everybody.
So let me explain this math to you. So just like Michael said, 15,000 to go to, you know, from Utah to Florida, right? So the brokerage is taking 10%. 8% goes to the actual broker agent. The brokerage only gets 2%. So 10% off of 15,000 is $1,500, right?
So I just looked up a load. So I just looked up a load.
Is getting 8% of $1,500 just off of that one load.
So I just looked up the load from Utah to Florida, and I just looked up a van load. I can look up reefer, but 15,000 is nowhere close to support the current market rates from Utah to Florida. So $15,000 in your example is not.
Okay, it's actually it's not. I'm not going to argue with it, but it's not Utah. It's Idaho, and I'm already working with them, and I'm going to do it for 10 because I'm small enough that I need to be able to go through small claims court, not large claims court. So they're saying that they're doing it at 16,500 and 15,000 right now, and I mean, we can argue about it all day long, but I've been told that, you know, a $9,000 load, they're giving $3,500 for. I've been told that a $12,000 load for 1,000 miles, you know, is a $2,500 lane. I don't care about them lanes. I'm being told by the shippers that they're paying a hell of a lot more than what the brokers are saying they're being told. So here's my problem with it, right? Either the brokers that are telling me they're not making that much either don't know what the hell they're doing, or they're just not telling the truth.
Well, if
And
the shipper is paying that, they're not being a steward of their money. Bottom line, they're not being a steward of their money. I mean, there's not a customer I do business with that if I quote them a lane, and I'm just using an example, I just quoted while I'm going to be on the phone from West Virginia to Maryland, and I quoted $1,200. And if I would call this customer up right now while we're here, and I say, Nate, I quoted you for $1,200. If you award me this load, do you care? Do you care what I pay a carrier? He'll say, absolutely not. And he'd say, I hope you make as much money as you can. That's what he would say. Right here.
Austin had a question. Is this round trip at 10K or is this one way?
One way.
Just me.
One way.
Oh, yeah.
Is this produce or is this reefer?
Yep.
Okay, I figured. Well, we all know that inbound Florida is high. You got to make your money coming into Florida because everything coming out's a $1.50 a mile. I do a lot of outbound Florida reefer and dry van, and I pay anywhere. I mean, obviously, produce season affects us a little bit, but once watermelons are done and produce is done, it moves up to Georgia and stuff. What's left in Georgia, you're going to get for $1.50 a mile. I know that. I just paid $1.49 to go to Mendota, Illinois, out of Florida on a dry van. But that's the market.
Yeah, the posted rates on the market for, the load boards that's going to the carriers. That's not what the brokerage is actually getting.
But I mean, we can argue about it all day long, but every example that I found so far, I can't find no examples that meet the we're not making that kind of money, deal. I mean, even your example doesn't work out real well. I mean,
here's a broker commenting, they are getting ripped off. Please send me that shipper. I could save that shipper $2K a load easily. It does seem, at least from the brokerage end, obviously it's different, right? But I believe everybody's somewhat in the same boat of looking for business, right? And at least from my experience, I know that these shippers, somebody is overpaying. Like, it's going to be found out pretty quick. So at least I'm not aware of anybody ripping off shippers like that and pocketing that much money off of loads.
It's probably perception though too. I mean, John, you said loads that you've made $3,000-$4,000 off one shipment,
Sure.
right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, in your mind, that's not ripping off. That's because the customer, you'll openly say who those customers are, because you don't view that you're going to lose those customers if they knew you were making $3,000 to $5,000 a load.
Yeah, well, I mean, and again, that's freight that's complex, hazmat, niche, extremely time sensitive. Carriers are everything. And like I said, it's a blend. You got to understand. So if I'm at 3% for the month, I think I'm going to end at 33% for this month. But so I have customers I make 12% on, 11% on. I got customers I make 45% on.
But it's 33% is the average. But what's your total revenue this month?
Total revenue this month?
Approximately.
You mean GP?
Revenue.
I'd have to look that up, man. I can tell you what GP is though.
All right, what's gross profit?
I'm gonna settle out about 213 this month.
213,000, and you think if you're running at 33%, that would, I guess we could do the math from there, but. Oh, I lost you there, but I was saying my point is to carriers that could be a bad optic, in that sense. I understand how they feel, but from your perspective, basically, and I see your perspective too, your customers know that you're making these type of margins, basically.
Well, at least for me, so with my personal book within our company, there are many lanes I run at a loss. And there's other lanes where my profit's a little bit bigger, and similar to John, it sounds like you average it out, right? So if a broker's saying that he's losing money on a load, he very may well be. I mean, I lose, my personal book is around 150, 160 loads this week, and probably 20 of them like we lost money on. That said, when you average it all out, it's around 15, 17%, but we do lose money on load by load basis at times. I have lanes that I run at a loss regularly.
Sure. So 744 is the number, man.
$744,000 in revenue.
That's what I'm going to bill this month. Correct.
So $500K went to the truck, and about $250 went to you, approximately.
Give or take. Correct.
So from Chris and just me's mind, they're looking at, if you had made 15% margin, that they $150,000 a month would have gone more to the carrier.
I agree, but I mean the math is right. What you say is true, but there again, I run a business. Apple makes 70% margin on their products. Furniture's 200%. Jewelry's 400 or 500%. I mean, some of my success is because I negotiate well with the carriers. I think I do better than most. So when I negotiate loads, I think there's a portion of that margin. I'm going to say somewhere sub 10%, 7 to 9%. I covered a load today. I think she was going to ask for 14. That's where I think she was going to ask. But the way I set the call up, and before we got to the money, she asked for 1,000. I gave it to her. And I leverage a lot of things. Like if I'm looking at an area code and I've got a load going to Houston, and I see a Houston area code or a Louisiana area code, I know there's a very good chance they need that load to get back home, and my load matches with them. And then I leverage my negotiation skills with the carrier. I come across that I don't need them, and I don't. You could have a load picking up in nowhere, Montana, going to Miami. You'll get it covered. There's trucks that need loads. That there's a abundance of trucks and not as many loads. So right now the broker has leverage. That'll switch at some point. I mean, sometime in 2025, talking to some of the experts with these super carriers that I'm friends with. But I mean, at the end of the day, I run a business, and my business is to maximize profits. Freight is a commodity. Trucking is a service. I mean, the carriers are a service, and I move the freight at the price that the market demands. And just like Will said, if that means he has to take a loss to move the freight, he'll do it. Yeah. If I have to take a loss to move the freight, I'll do it, whatever that number is. If I post a load at $2 a mile and I don't get a phone call, guess what I do? I make it 210, then 215, then 220. Sooner or later, I find the sweet spot. I get the calls. I move the freight.
Yeah, no, I think we, I understand that from obviously being a broker too. I mean, just me and Chris, when you hear that, what are kind of your thoughts there?
Again, like I said, I'm changing it so there's no negotiation. This is what it is. I'm giving the contract to them day one. Like they're getting the tender with their rate con. I'm changing things. I'm also requesting that, well, actually demanding, because I'm paying good money, but that they go to the truck stop, and if they can't afford the 50 cents for the copy, I don't care. I'll pay for it. But the rate con will actually have how it's all broken down. It will have why it's broken down, why I'm doing what I'm doing. It'll have a link to the transparency law. And, I'm just bringing everything out in the open. And on top of that, I want the carrier to put on top of the bill of lading exactly what they were paid with their signature on it, so that there is no question about where the money's going or anything else. And, when these shippers are getting, happy people showing up, and people that are showing up on time, and people that are, doing a good job, it's going to show, because a happy driver does a better job.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
I do like that statement.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not asking Congress to change nothing. I don't give a damn anymore. When I get capacity and people that actually want to go do it and want to make money, then I'm going to say, this is what you're going to pay period. I don't care if it's the brokers that have done it or if it's the shippers that have done it. If it's not the shippers, then well, like a couple have already done, they need to step out of the limelight and say, hey, this is what I'm actually paying, and this is crap. I couldn't believe that you were actually getting, stiffed that bad. But like I said, I found out the load from Moses Lake, Washington to Mojave, California to Moses Lake, Washington, just over 1,000 miles, paid $12,000. Go ahead and look that line up on DAT or anywhere else, and you'll see that broker pocketed $9,000 to $10,000. And that's just, I mean, that's outrageous. Enough.
Regardless of if it's a broker, or any business, we're talking about trucking, but is it illegal? So, we're obviously, we live in a free enterprise society. That's what makes America great. That's America in general, is that I can charge whatever I want for my services. We're not in a socialistic country or anything like that. Capitalism is alive and well. And, is there anything wrong? Because again, if I had a product or a service, we'll go to McDonald's, right? We'll talk about inflation. This is something that's and a Big Mac is a Big Mac meal is $18. If people were paying it and they're selling a bunch of Big Macs at $18, God bless them. The minute that the people aren't buying $18 Big Macs anymore, then they reduce the price. But right now, is there anything wrong with making a profit? If we've got customers willing to pay that money and we got carriers willing to accept that money, and regardless of whatever business we have, if I went out here and made shovels and it cost me $1 to make them, and some guy pulls up and will buy them for $10, is that wrong? Is there something wrong with that? What am I missing here? Because
there is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing wrong with it, but at the same time, the carriers aren't getting that share to where they can be operational.
Then don't do those loads. Then don't take them.
I don't.
Right.
That's what we're trying to train people to do, is don't take those loads. Don't take any of those loads.
Hey, I appreciate
the education. I appreciate that you're going out here and educating the drivers and calling out the bad actors and the bad brokers that lie, mislead, and do those types of things that don't run above board business. I'm all for that. And if you can get traction, whether it be through the government or whatever, and say, hey, these don't take these loads. But guys, I'm telling you, I move between my Dalton business and my business. I'm at 7,700 loads. We'll just use last year, about 8,000 loads. And I never didn't move them. So there's always somebody, that takes them. So until that changes, until you change that, but getting everybody, because there's a lot of foreign money that back trucking. We know that. I know that there's foreign money where our dollar is stronger. So that money goes back overseas where our dollar is stronger. And so with the exchange, that, you know what I mean? It just happens.
Well,
William, before we get too into this, William had a question. Will, you want to put that out there? He said he wanted me to ask, and it's a good time for it because we're on this topic. Over at 227.
Yeah, William asked, Matt, can you ask these two how many loads they actually move with their it's only one rate load situation?
He's asking how the strategy is working so far, basically.
Well, like I said, we're going to be in negotiations here pretty quick. We've already talked to them, and they said that they like the plan. Again, like I've said many a time. I don't know if they know or not, or they just whatever. But I've already been told by Del Monte, and you should know who Del Monte is. When we get 10,000 trucks, come on over. We want to talk. We like your idea. Everybody that's looked at our idea says it's a great business plan. It's a great business motto. And the only ones that don't like it are brokers. And they say they've got nothing to hide. And yet want to hide. So it's like, I don't get it. I mean,
Well, I'm no threat
everybody.
to anybody because I'm a one-man show, right? And I'm very transparent. So I don't have anything to hide. I mean, me, myself. I mean, I just told you I made 33.77% margin, and that's a true number. I build, I mean, so for me, I'm not bashful. I had money before I was a broker. I've done well as a broker. I'll do well when I'm not a broker. I mean, because I have rentals and investments and other things, outside of trucking, right? So I'm very transparent. My goal as a business owner is to make the most money I can, and while doing, let me add this, while doing good business. I can give you a list of 50 carriers, and you can call every one of them, Doug Facemeyer, any of them, and they will tell you I do good, clean business, from super carriers with 3,000 and 6,000 trucks down to fleets with 1 and 2 and 5 trucks. Every one of them will say, you know what? John has always treated me fair, no bad vibes, and he does what he says he's going to do, and we agreed on a price, and I really don't care what John makes. And I can have carriers tell you this, not shippers, not anybody, but actual carriers tell you this. And I'll give you a whole list to call those people. Because if I was a bad broker, I'd be out of business because nobody would haul my freight.
Just me, you referenced when you guys had 10,000 trucks. Where are you guys currently at with your truck count, or how many members?
32. 32.
32.
Yeah. Again, like I said, it's a grassroots movement. Either it's going to take off or it isn't. It doesn't really matter to me at this point in time. But I can tell you one thing right now: where the industry is going right now, don't need any of you brokers. None of you.
Catch me out.
I don't want you.
Well, it seems like you're
Zero brokers, you're saying the industry
Yep.
needs?
Where the industry is going right now doesn't need not one of you brokers.
So who's going to be who's going to be the salespeople for the guy with 5 trucks? Who's going to be out there to get that guy?
Whoever owns the autonomous truck. Whoever owns the autonomous truck will be the broker. They don't need you. And it'll be
Even
big
the way
money.
that
It'll be
it's going
Warner.
I'm 51, gentlemen. I'll see that. I will not see an autonomous truck be mainstream. I'll see autonomous trucks. Autonomous trucks will be not mainstream in my lifetime.
Really?
I don't believe that. No.
Okay. Don't need to believe it. I'm not. Yeah.
Well, if there was autonomous trucks, we would.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's an autonomous company that has ran 2.5 million miles already, and just took the driver out of the truck completely this year, and is making 800 of them for Loadsmith next year. So it isn't going to happen in your generation.
It's a controlled environment.
Will that affect you guys, though?
Government's not going to turn that loose in rural West Virginia. I promise you, the government is going to turn an autonomous truck with roads that are 15-mile-an-hour hairpin curves going up and down Route 60. You're not going to see them for a while. I'm not saying it's never going to happen. It's going to be a while.
Michael, will that affect your operation too, though, with autonomous trucks? Because shippers obviously are going to get cheaper rates from, let's say this is true. Austin made a comment, saying they wouldn't need to overpay to haul your freight if autonomous trucks came. So, I mean, is that a threat to your organization as well? I mean, not just brokers, but it would be a threat to what you're trying to do as well, right?
100%. But like I said, you guys can sit back and do what you're doing now and run us out, and we don't have a fight in the game. But, this is the last industry that can actually get our country back online and say we're not doing it unless somebody does something about it, period. So when that all happens, like I said, he wants to talk about, oh, it's not going to do this and not going to do that, and that's fine. But realize this, okay? The interstate was created for military and commercial use only, not you to drive on. So they don't care if you get a drive on it, right? But think about this for a minute. If you can't get on the interstate, where are you going? If you cannot physically get on the interstate, because all your cars, they can make them so they cannot get on the interstate right now. Right now, they can flip a button and say you don't get on the interstate no more. And that car will not turn onto the interstate. You don't believe me? Go down to AutoZone, get you one of them little tester things, and inside it says steering testing. Try to hold that steering wheel when you push that button and see if it rips your arm off.
Well,
So
we,
do you think
we
there's
got a
any
little off
good
track
brokers
here.
out
Go
there?
It's a lot deeper than people think. Like I said, I don't care, man. I'm pushing getting out of it anyway. So it really doesn't matter. Either we can start joining together. I mean, understand there are some brokers that are going to be needed, and there are multiple brokers that are going to be needed. If Chris or I think that one broker is going to be able to handle this operation that I'm trying to put together, you're sadly mistaken. Because even John has a credit line that he can run trucks out, and he would eventually hit that credit line if there was 100,000 loads that were coming through the door at him, right?
Well, I have a question. So you had referenced that it's really bad for truck drivers right now. You think that autonomous trucks are the future and that none of us are going to be needed. And then you seem passionate about the project, but at the same time you said that you don't really care. And then you had referenced that you go make 250, 300,000 in oil. If you think that that's where the industry is headed, why are you so passionate about, and this is a genuine question, it seems like you're trying to start a movement, right, which takes a lot of involvement, a lot of effort. What's behind that? Because it just seems kind of almost like contradictory to the way that you're seeing it unfolding. It's just kind of almost like, by that logic, it's like, what's the point? You're gonna have autonomous trucks. I'm not making any money, but I can go make 300,000 doing this. So then, like, what's the point of continuing it? Go ahead.
No, 3, 2. Not 3, 2. Yeah, and yeah, you can make $200,000 in the oil field.
Oh, I agree. There's an article I just read about Alaska. I mean, if there's so many jobs available in Alaska in the oil field that paying $250,000, but does the average guy want to uproot his family, move to Alaska where it's cold as shit? Plus, he gets a check from ExxonMobil and the oil field companies at the end of the year, plus all your family. I mean, so there's plenty of work for drivers.
I think, John, the question was just kind of why he was going on the. I don't know if you answered that. Maybe I cut out, but
here's the thing. I put the system together, okay, and here's what I got from I'm gonna call them white boy drivers, okay, because every time I turn around, all I get is, this is too big. Somebody else is going to take the load. You're not going to be able to do this. You're not going to be able to do that. You're not going to be able to do this. This is, you're biting off more than you can chew. Well, okay, great. But I bit it off. Now, are you going to stand behind me? Are you going to go over there and, continue running TQL's loads? Or are you going to join with me and to the side of me and fight what it is?
So this guy,
I don't really believe that the small brokers are the real problem. Some of them are. I mean, some of them just don't care, right?
So let me ask you a question. So this guy quits. So let me ask you a question real quick, because I got to get ready to go because I got to pick up my truck that's been in the shop for 3 weeks. If the guy quits running these TQL loads, so say it's a lane and he runs, and I get that he wants to do your movement, how does he feed his family while you're doing this movement? How does he feed his family? How's he going to survive? Wolf's going to come to the door, still knocking every month for the mortgage payment, still got to buy groceries. So I get the movement. So it's, but if he says, F you TQL, I'm not going to do your loads anymore, how's he going to feed his family?
How many brokerages are out there?
There's 22,000 and some change.
Exactly.
Actually, there's
So
more
you got
actually. We've actually got the thing, but hold on. You asked how they're going to get fed. I'm really confused now.
Because you said, you mentioned TQL, but I mean, if that's the market rate, if that's the market rate, and he quits taking these loads, and it's the market rate, how does he feed his family?
Okay, he's coming back.
Hey, Fish, I'm on a podcast thing right now. Let me call you back.
No, I think that's a good question, John. We'll wait for him to wrap up this call to respond.
Let me call you back. I'm on a podcast thing right now. Give me just a bit.
I'm gonna cut out in 5, guys.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I got to get back to working too. So, I mean, I'm actually, breaking down carts, loading carts, and actually doing manual labor for, pennies on the dollar. And that's what I'm talking about. People need to stop doing this entirely. And the one thing that they need to start asking, any drivers that are out there, is this a tender rejection? If it's a tender rejection, reject it. Leave it on the dock. That's going to push all the mega companies back in the corner where they belong. So,
And you're a reefer carrier. I'll tell you this: if some of your drivers want to make drivers in the reefer business, because I do my share of reefer. I'm in probably 3 to 5 grocery warehouses a day. Compared to like a big broker, it's in like 100. But I always offer the drivers to unload, and I will pay them the cost of lumper, which averages about $250. So those drivers can make more money and I'll be more than happy to pay them. They can write a lumper receipt on a napkin if they want to. That's all I need. I'll be more than happy to pay those guys because I despise lumpers. It's a personal thing with me and Capstone, for example. But any of those guys that'll be willing to do that work, but maybe probably 2 to 3 drivers a year. So figure that I'm doing 3 to 5 loads a day of grocery warehouses, and maybe 2 to 3 guys the whole year take me up on unloading their own truck. I'll pay them. And I got some lumper bills that are $500-600. I'll pay those guys for that. That's a good movement.
Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem with that. Ever since gonorrhea facilities, and I'm talking about COVID, they don't let you on their dock no more.
So, a lot of them still do. Brookshire Brothers in Lufkin, Texas does. Dory Foods does. I mean, there are some in your U.S. Foods and Gordon Food Service, but a lot of your smaller ones still do because I'm there. I know.
I used to do it all the time. I'm an ex-car hauler, man. I used to go and I used to load cars.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not the standard driver like everybody else. Back up to the dock, crawling to sleep or fall asleep. Gain 50 pounds and the truck rocks when you get in the truck. No, I've done manual labor with everything that I did, whether or not it was hooking up an air hose for my pneumatic tanks, or whether or not it was hooking up, another hose for my hot oil on my double tanks, or whether or not it's breaking down carts doing this.
Well,
I lumped all my own trucks when I was doing LTL. I did a full load of dog food, and I had 2 hours to get it done. Even though they could do it in 5 hours, I had 2 hours to have it done, restacked, ties and highs done, and be off their damn dock.
Just me. Just for time purposes, William here says you're avoiding the question. You may have misunderstood, but he's asking you, with your reference about manual labor, why are so few drivers, John, saying doing that? If he's offering them an extra $400 or $500.
And I know the places that do them, right? So I know like RSS Food Service will do them, or Reinhardt. Like I know the ones because I do business, but they always tell me no.
Again, I mean, there's a difference in drivers. I mean, today's drivers, I don't really. A lot of them are steering wheel turners. You want my opinion? I mean, I'm out to
but you're
get rid of the bad drivers too. I mean,
organization, right?
There's a whole nother program coming down the line that the drivers that don't need to be out here, they don't need to be out here anymore, right? If they don't want to show some pride in the industry, I don't want anything to do with them. You can ask Chris. People that are assholes in a dock, I go over, I take their MC number, and I put them on the DNU list. They'll never haul a load, period.
For who? Or when you say DNU list, what DNU list are you putting them on?
I've got every single MC. I could make my list as big as I wanted to, but I'm honest. I wait for other people to add their trucks. I actually have a list of every single MC in the United States of America, broke down by state.
Well, you could pull that. I mean, I could do a data dump and pull that. That's not a hard thing to do.
Yeah, you can export it. Well, guys, look, we're kind of running late on time. I know John's got to run. Michael's got to run. It
Guys,
was
it's been
a good
fun.
discussion. Yeah.
God bless everybody. Good luck to you guys. I mean, I hope you make the most money that you want, that you can. I mean,
I'm
that's
not
the
out to
American
make
way.
money.
You know, just get out there and grind it out. That's what I do every day. Take care. God bless. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks,
I'm
John.
not
Thanks
out
for
to make
coming on,
money.
John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, just me for coming on. Thanks, Chris. And like I said, we wish your organization nothing but the best. And yeah, appreciate you guys' time coming on.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
It was a good one.
Yeah, it was kind of difficult. It was the first time, like, I don't knowingly try to interrupt people, but it's sometimes with that, we had some long-winded conversations. You kind of had to sometimes, you know?
Yeah. I started using the mute button a little bit more frequently as this episode went on. But no, overall, it was good to hear everybody's perspectives. Yeah, it was interesting, at the very least.
They're definitely both John and it's me definitely have passion behind what they're doing. I think there's no denying that, no matter what side you're on. I mean, you can tell they believe in what they're doing, and that they believe it's the right thing. So
yeah. Well, yeah, that'll wrap it up for episode 6. Thanks for everybody who tuned in. We really appreciate the comments. We enjoy when it's interactive. So if you guys are ever tuning in, you have a question or want somebody to talk about something, throw a comment in. We'll do our best to work it in. Sometimes the comments get thrown out, people start going on tangents, and it's a little bit tough. But yeah, just stay active in the chat, and we'll do our best to interact. Again, shout out to our sponsor, Sales-CRM. Great CRM option for any brokerages. Josh Lyles, founder. Hit him up on LinkedIn. Tell him that the Dawgs sent you. And yeah, that'll just about do it for episode 6 here.
Yeah, only freight specific CRM I know out there. Sales Dash. Pretty cool CRM. Shout out to Black Box. Shout out to Where Will Works. Shout out to HD. Shout out to Trio for helping us on all the back end. I think are we doing a show next week? Are you doing it from this conference, or what's our, you're going to be in a conference, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can make something work. I'm sure that we'll be live at some point. Nothing scheduled, but be on the lookout on the pages. I'm sure there will be an announcement.
Sounds like a plan. We'll have a good weekend. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Take care.